And okay, I think we're good to go. So welcome everyone to the cert-manager bi-weekly meeting. It's the 17th of October 2024. The start of it's a fun time of year because the clocks change at different times in different countries, and the next meeting after this one is going to be affected by that. If you for some reason are a super fan and you watch these on YouTube ahead of the next bi-weekly meeting, check the time where you are because this will be a different time in North America the next time this happens. So just, you've been warned. I've put it in the doc as well. It'll still catch people out. It always does. The same applies to countries like India that don't have daylight savings time. It's going to appear like this meeting shifts an hour. Most of Europe are on the same schedule, so that should be fine. I'll run.
Is it just me who doesn't hear him
I think
anymore?
we've lost him. I think that's a proper. He's going to be disappearing in a minute. A great start.
So start again, maybe.
We can start again. Yeah. But wait. If you haven't already, the agenda doc is available if you want to add anything to the agenda doc as a last-minute shoehorn. Feel free to add anything you want to the doc. It's linked. I'll put it in the channel, the Slack, the Zoom chat. Oh, now you're back.
I do apologize. My internet's been fine all day, and then when I start talking, it fails, of course. I'm on my phone Wi-Fi now, though, so that should be fine. Where did I get to? Where did I break off?
I think you're about to do announcements.
Wow. So daylight savings time, be careful. Announcements. So Manager 116 was released. The follow-up patch release has also been released. Hooray, it was on time. A load of work went into it. Thank you to Richard Wall for doing most of that heavy lifting on that. Awesome. Yay. OpenShift Roots v0.7 was also released. If you're running OpenShift, this fundamentally changes how it works to use cert-manager certificates rather than certificate requests. We didn't add an option to disable that because it didn't seem like there was actually any need to. We've had some good feedback actually come into this week about it, even though it's been out for a few weeks now. Please test it if you can. It was a big change, but it seems to have been fairly smooth at least. Yeah, and I also added in just to say that I'm looking to try and schedule a steering committee meeting soon, which is will be the second one that we've had. It's about time to do it. I think because we have to schedule between the East Coast of the United States and India, there's like 1 hour in the day that it actually works that everyone will be awake and working. So yeah, those are, I think, open for anyone. Certainly maintainers are very welcome to join and will probably gain a lot from joining. Don't know what we're going to discuss yet, but you know, it is stated it's a thing that's going to happen. I am speaking a lot, but that was the announcements. I guess you got a break from me speaking because I disconnected for a second there, so that's good. I suppose this is also an announcement, but the first thing on the agenda was I just wanted to give a quick update about Venafi, which is Venafi got acquired at the beginning of October by CyberArk, so it's now Venafi, a CyberArk company. In the short term, nothing changes on that. There's no plans for anything to change regarding Venafi, a CyberArk company's involvement in cert-manager. Everyone's all very happy about the recent news with cert-manager. Everything's exciting, everything's good. What may change, and nothing is certain, but what may change is that we may end up using new GitHub accounts for ourselves to do cert-manager contributions at work. That's not guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. Essentially what I'm saying is there may be changes, and I wanted to say in a public forum that, we'll communicate it all as much as we can, but nothing should be changing as far as I can tell. The main thing obviously is if we do use new GitHub accounts, then we will not get notified on old issues and things like that. It may be a thing. Again, we don't know. I just wanted to say it with people smiling back at me, so it was out in the public. But yeah, things are afoot, and that's why it's been fairly quiet actually for the past few weeks. Is that a lot of the Venafi maintainers are busy with standard new company stuff. I'm sure we all know the type of stuff we've been doing. I'm hoping that next week or maybe the week after, a sort of mini announcement will go out within CyberArk, which may prompt some CyberArk people to join either our open stand-ups or the bi-weekly. Who knows? Be nice to see them. Obviously, it hasn't gone out yet, so there's no one here on this one. But that's that. I'll move right on to the second item so we can talk about things that are more exciting. I recently had a PR merge in cert-manager, which changes the signature algorithms we will use with large RSA keys. This is in response to a US Department of Defense memo, which recommends different signature algorithms with larger keys. This shouldn't really affect anyone unless you're running really weird software. I can't imagine it will affect anyone that's on this call currently. If anyone watches this and thinks, hang on, I'm not sure if SHA-384 is maybe a bit new for me. If you think that, now's the time to mention it so we can add some sort of like opt-out of this. This only affects the self-signed and CA issuers, so it's not a huge effect. It's not going to affect like ACME. But again, wanted to put it out in the public. If anyone thinks they'll be affected by it, now's the time to speak up. Obviously, an alpha will go out at some point that people can test and we'll get through all the normal stuff. It's just a change we are making. Okay, I've talked enough. Before I disconnect again, I'd like to open it up to others to say something. There's nothing else on the agenda, so anyone want to raise a hand and chat about anything? Jen, yeah, go ahead, mate.
Hi. I'm not sure if the wait. So we did put something on the agenda on the biweekly meeting notes doc.
It was added to future items, but is that the external CA issuer?
Yes. Okay. I see.
Yeah.
It was added to future items. I see it now. Okay.
I'll move it into the agenda. Sure.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So basically, Akbar and I. So I'm Divi, and Akbar is on this call as well. The two of us are maintainers for the private CA external issuer. And we saw that in the documentation specifically, there is a path to becoming in tree essentially. And also we saw that there's like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 issuers and stuff in the cert-manager documentation. We wanted to know, we spoke to Venafi about this actually, and they pointed us to you guys, and they said that all of that is a completely community-owned process. So we were wondering, how do we, it seems like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 issuers and the requirements for each tier are pretty well documented. Is there like a process that's defined in documentation around how an issuer becomes in tree and like what that process looks like?
I certainly don't think there's a process defined for that, because
Okay.
whenever we've discussed this before, the consensus has largely been we actually want to remove the in-tree ones that we currently have and get them separate. So the issues that we've had with that sort of mirror the problems that Kubernetes has had, really. So Kubernetes obviously started with like cloud provider integrations built in, then it becomes this whole thing to maintain it and all that. And to be honest, like the entry issuers that we have, Venafi, Vault, and Acme, CA and self-signed are just so simple and trivial that they're kind of different. But like Venafi, Vault, and Acme, we would actually rather get them out into their own things. Like the Acme one specifically obviously requires loads of DNS webhook stuff that it's all about like We get the Azure SDK, the AWS SDK, Google Cloud, everything else, DigitalOcean. And that dependency burden is actually a problem for us. So as a rule, we're actually trying to move in the opposite direction. Likewise, the Venafi issue, obviously, conflict of interest alert. I work for Venafi, but like we would rather have that be a separate open source issuer. We have a closed source issuer as well, but we don't want it in the core. We don't want that because exactly it creates this maintenance burden. It has a dependency burden. Like we generally don't want that.
Okay, gotcha. So is it that's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing that's happening in the background. Is the dependency burden essentially like if things change on the issuer side, keeping it in sync between like because there already is an external issuer, like keeping it in sync, is that like kind of the dependency burden, or is it if something breaks on the issuer, then like that holds up the cert-manager release?
Honestly, the biggest burden is actually just at a Go language level is the libraries that we have to import. A pattern that we see a lot, is that people just run security scanners against things and then scream if anything comes out as reported by it. So if there's an AWS SDK CVE, even if we're not affected by it, we get security emails about it, and for some reason the kind of person that does that is kind of demanding and unpleasant to deal with. So that's a lot of the motivation for it, but also there is a sort of complexity argument and like also a sort of community spirit argument. We don't want anything to look like it's got an official seal of approval from us, maybe beyond like the CA issuer because it's so silly and like dumb. We don't want to make it look like we're favoring one or another. It's just mostly that those things were added before cert-manager joined the CNCF, so like it didn't have the same rules in place.
Just out of curiosity, could I ask the opposite question? What are the motivations for becoming an entry issuer? What are the things that you hope to gain on it?
I think we were just kind of interested in specifically if you look at Amazon EKS, we've just noticed a lot of customers are using it already. And we've noticed that a lot of people are using it already with cert-manager. I think the number that's out there is like 86%, right? Like 86% of Kubernetes clusters are using it. And specifically, we just wanted to make it easier for everyone to who's already using aws-privateca and cert-manager already, which is like that combo is pretty popular among AWS users on EKS, making it easy for them to install. Like it's not just like two things they have to install; it's one thing they have to install. And we read about entry and we said, oh, this is a great way to do that.
We were really indexing on the one-click solution where like you install cert-manager and you get everything installed at once. So I think I hear the entry stuff. I was wondering if we could entertain like maybe an idea where I'm not like a super Kubernetes expert where you can opt to install like any issuer, external CA issuers when you install cert-manager side by side. I don't know if that's ever been thought of / discussed or reasons why you would never do that.
I really understand the motivation here. And I hope we can do something to kind of satisfy the arguments here to make it simpler for users to install cert-manager with an opt-in for external issuers. That would be very, very nice if we can do some improvement in that area. That's the reason I asked this question.
I'd also argue that if we're going to move in the other direction, looking at ways we can simplify the like I don't call them but plugin install process is going to be key, because like we don't want it to make it more painful for people to use Acme if Acme is like 90% of what people would download cert-managers for. Like most of our user base is people just setting up home Let's Encrypt stuff.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking at something where you have cert-manager itself, where the code lives, and then you have the issuers, and then you have something on top, probably Helm, which kind of where you can register issuers that are added to this umbrella or whatever you could call this thing. So there'd be kind of more official issuers than any random issuer living out on its own. Something like that.
That is a pattern projects like Prometheus have followed with their monitoring Helm chart, which lets you install pretty much any Prometheus component understood into Kubernetes, including like the node agent and all kinds of stuff. Whether it's just one Uber Helm chart that installs all the parts. That's not currently what we have, but is a pattern that is in the wild already for other projects.
I'm not super familiar, Adam. Could you talk more to that? What is it? It's like this like Uber Helm chart, and then you like opt out of things you don't want, or is it the inverse?
Yeah, so as a Helm chart where you have it can install multiple components. Maybe it's through subcharging, maybe just straight up built into it. But the idea is you'd have like aws-privateca dot enabled equals true. That would install it with that. Similarly, we could have like Acme enabled as an option, and maybe because that's currently in tree, we default that to true for foreseeable and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
We had discussed this a bit before as well. There was some prototyping of how we might move the core issuers out of core, and one thing that was thrown about was like a sort of a Helm chart vending machine where you will generate a different Helm chart depending on what combination of things you actually want installing. Same sort of idea, like it's the same, all the same sort of thing, and like that way that could leverage the existing issuer list, which Tim worked on really hard, and it looked really cool. And sort of like anything that reaches like the criteria for tier 1 gets to be included in this Helm chart vending machine kind of thing. So there's a direct incentive for quality as well. Because a lot of the issuers are kind of like this one guy at some company that's like hacking away in his lunch break kind of thing.
Okay, is there so it sounds like there's like a lot of ideas around it, and I kind of the vending machine is an interesting idea. Is any of this, I'm not really sure how it works. Is this something where like we can create like an issue and so the community can kind of talk about it and come up with like an idea of what people like, or like what is the right next step for us to keep discussing this?
I think. Well, go on, Ash.
I was going to say that the first step would be to get it on the roadmap because it's such a big change, but it's actually already on the roadmap. So that's that step is done. Like the idea of shrinking core is there already. We want to do that. It's formalized there. That doesn't commit us to doing it any time frame. It just says that we do want to do it. I imagine the biggest barrier to progressing on the core issuers front is probably engineering effort and available time for it. Like it's kind of a fiddly process, and it's not providing a great deal of value to anyone currently using cert-manager today. It's kind of mostly it's helping us who have to do Go mod upgrades kind of thing, right? Like it's hard to justify working on it over some other stuff like the signature things I was talking about earlier.
But there is a world where like we could rally around like an idea we have, and Amazon, contributes engineering power to actually like getting it done.
Yeah, definitely. We have a process of design documents, which is documented on the cert-manager website, and a design document which we could sort of consider and coalesce around would be a path.
That's what I was going to say. After getting on the roadmap, I think that would be the next thing, is raising a PR into the cert-manager repo with a proposal, so we can actually comment and start organizing around the direction we want to take, and then once we've nailed that down, it's easier for engineers to contribute because we've nailed down what we're doing.
Right.
Okay. So I think that gives Akbar, you and me a place that we can talk about this and try to figure out like what the right next thing to do is.
Is there any links y'all could point us to around like the design doc that you have handy? Or
I've just put one in chat.
Okay, great.
I've read your mind.
Nice.
There's also on the cert-manager repo, there's a bunch of examples for what it's looked like in the past, which I'll put in chat as well.
Great.
Nice.
It would be great to get some momentum on this, because that could also push us to start moving out the currently entry issuers according to the same pattern. Really.
Yeah,
And
I'd love to do that.
yeah, we could rally them around issue a lib and make just a whole bunch of entry, well, not entry, but first party issuers out of this.
And if I had just like random questions while setting this up, the best place to have this discussion would be like the cert-manager Slack. Just questions around like ideas here.
cert-manager
Yeah.
dev on Kubernetes Slack specifically. Yeah, I'll link to that.
Yeah, the dev channel is where we talk technical. So, and if no one's replying in there, just at one of the people here.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for all the info. Much appreciated. Great. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I've just sort of pointed a fire hose at you of links, but like I think all the information is contained within somewhere.
Sweet. Yeah, and if I have questions, I'll just reach out in Slack and we can chat more.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all for me. I don't know if Divy had any more questions about this topic.
No, I'm good. I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you both for joining. I did one thing that came to me while we were talking there is kind of unrelated but sort of related, is on the issuer page we currently have, which I put in chat as just another link. There is this tier system that's documented there, and private CA issuer is currently tier 2. I guess because it's lacking an end-to-end tutorial based on the criteria. I don't see any reason we couldn't get that up to tier 1 if like as a first step, like get this promoted alongside everything else that's tier 1 kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Is there like a Oh, okay. It says it right here, actually. I was going to ask what should the tutorial include, but it literally says an end-to-end tutorial must include. Okay.
Yeah, that is definitely one where like it's a quick website PR to make the change, assuming that the tutorial's there, obviously. You can just ping it at us, and again, cert-manager dev on Slack's probably the best place. Ping the PR in there, and it's a very easy thing to do that, you know, puts a little shine on everything.
Okay.
Sweet.
Are you aware of the issue lib? Or are you maybe already using it?
I mean, maybe familiar, but that term doesn't ring a bell to me.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Maybe Tim can say more about it, but it makes code make you have less code in your issuer, because a lot of taking care of you. It might be something that you should take a look at if
Okay.
see if it can fit your issuer.
It looks like it's not being used by the privacy issuer currently.
Yeah.
Go on, Tim.
Basically, we
link?
create a.
Sorry.
Sorry.
There.
Yeah, I posted a link in the chat. So basically, this is a library that you can use to write your own issuers, and really allows you to just focus on the signing and the checking of the issuer itself.
Mm.
The long-term goal is to kind of use this for the entry issuers too. But right now, we use it for the Google CAS issuer. We also use it for an internal Venafi issuer. There are some other people that are also using it for their own issuers, their private issuers. But yeah, it's quite a powerful library, and it can really reduce the complexity of your issuer. And if we, with multiple projects, start using this, hopefully we can also kind of combine all the different improvements that we make to these issuers.
It looks like it has a stability disclaimer. I will definitely check it out. But I'm just asking, but is this something where we can expect it to change often, or is it pretty stable?
Well, I think there's definitely some work that we still have to do in terms of the API. So it might still change in the future, definitely.
Okay.
I think the major, so we have a few steps here that we are talking about. So I think now we create some, or we have some issuers that use this library, but there are still a few missing features. For example, if we want to use this for the entry issuers, one thing that's missing is if we do check the issuer status, like if we want to see if an issuer is ready or not, one additional thing we might want to do is we want to add additional status fields. Like in the Acme issuer, we actually have some kind of field that contains information about the Acme setup that we're using. And that is right now not yet supported, adding those fields in the status. So that will have to be a change in the issuer. Another thing that I think we would like to change is the way we return certain results. Right now it's done a lot through errors that we return. I think at some point we'll want to make that a bit more explicit and actually return some proper structs instead of these wrapped errors. So there is still some work to be done, and the API will change because of that. So it is a useful library. It's very cool to use, but it might still change in the future, definitely.
And if you do check it out and you find a glaring feature you think is missing, then let us know, because we are trying to make it an easy tool for teams to create issuers. So if it's missing any glaring features to allow teams to create issuers, then
Right.
we should probably get it working.
Wait, did I hear that right? That the Acme issuer is already using it?
No, I'm looking into that. But one of the things that we have to fix is, for example, this check function. It has to be able to update the status of the issuer itself. So those are things we have to fix first before we can actually move the Acme issuer. And there are other things, of course, that are still open challenges. At some point, I would like to move the entry issuers to use this library too. Because it has like a lot of different cool features. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, thanks for letting us know about this. We didn't know anything about the issuer lib.
Yep.
Definitely check that out. It's really, really cool. Also, it really tries to reconcile at the right time. For example, it waits for the certificate request to be reconciled. So the certificate request won't be reconciled until the issuer has a condition that says ready. So first there will be a ready check, then the certificate request can be reconciled. It also has support for certificate signing requests, combined with a cluster issuer. So there's really a lot of stuff that's already implemented and a lot of functionality that you don't have to think about anymore. So yeah,
definitely
nice.
That sounds pretty useful.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing it right, it's like it takes a lot of the work around thinking about Kubernetes controllers, and you just write business logic. And here's my API to sign a certificate request. And
yes, yeah, indeed. So there are like two functions that you have to implement: check and sign. And the check function can be used to basically verify that everything that you configured in the issuer specification is correct, and it will put the ready condition on the issuer if that function returns successfully. So it just returns an error, and if the error is null, it will say the issuer is ready. The sign function has a set of arguments. One of the arguments is the CSR. You also have like a certificate template, which is kind of based on the CSR. And basically what that sign function expects as a return value is the signed certificate. So you basically implement the signed certificate and do that. You don't have to write anything about updating conditions in these functions or updating resources. It's all done automatically for you after you return the result from that function.
yeah, very cool.
Cool. That's for me. Akbar, you got anything?
Nope, that's it.
All right.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for raising that. It's been a really cool discussion. we always want people to join the call and be talking about issuers external to cert-manager, because like that list can be updated, right? We want like this ecosystem thing going on. It's a great thing to see. So thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're done with that topic. So the next one, which I'll move on to quickly in case my internet dies again, is from Tim. So I'll throw it over to Tim.
Yes, thank you. Just want to quickly shout out this PR. It's already half done. So we removed the old cert-manager API definitions from the cert-manager repository. And this PR adds them back to the cmctl command, because that's actually the only place where we still need those old API definitions. We need them there because cmctl has a convert command, which basically takes a local YAML file and converts it to the new API version. And so for that, we need all the conversion functions and all the old API definitions still. So yeah, this PR adds them back there. And this is also just in general bit of a update here. We removed those definitions from cert-manager as part of the 1.16 release. So now it's only the latest API definitions that are still in the cert-manager repository. Yeah, so if you want to review that PR, feel free to do so.
I guess no one's reviewing 36,000 lines in any great detail, but I think it's just copy pasted, right, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's a lot of generated code too, and that's also something this PR does. It adds the generators for these definitions. So I'm not sure entirely if it's split into different commits. No, it's one commit, okay. But I think you should be able to figure out which are the generate files and which are not, because they have it in their file name.
Yeah, I mean, the changes in the make file kind of list which ones are going to get generated, right?
Right, yes. I just copied the all the definitions, like the type definitions. One thing I did compared to cert-managers are removed some files, things that we actually didn't use, like certain constants and so on that were actually not used anymore. I removed those, and yeah, that's it. Then I also I changed all the schemas to point to this new schema that we have locally and that has all these old types registered.
Looks good. I'd forgotten that you were doing this, to be honest. I remember you mentioning it like ages ago and I'd forgotten completely, but I guess should we just merge this and be done? Like realistically, no one's reviewing 36,000 lines and it's copy pasted mostly. Like I'm sure if it's broken, you'll fix it in a follow-up. So
yeah, I mean the conversion command has tests and those now pass, so definitely is something that's working now. So if we used the schema that didn't have those additional types registered, it would actually fail. So I think that was actually the case when we just upgraded without the, oh no, actually, yeah, no, it must have been somewhere in between when I was doing this change. Might have just tried to do it with the new schema with just the new types registered, and that actually made the test fail because all the conversion CLI commands were failing.
well, I've approved it. Obviously we can review follow-ups if we need to, but I've approved and hopefully that'll be in.
Cool. Yeah. Another thing that I noticed there is the config APIs are v1 alpha 1, I think. So at some point we want to upgrade those.
Sounds those like are reasonable. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, those are the APIs for the config files, basically.
It sounds reasonable to target cert-manager 1.17 for getting those at beta. I guess they won't change much at all, right? We don't get much feedback on them.
I wouldn't change them at all. I just have them straight up because that way, it doesn't matter what version you specify. We're happy with the format.
Yeah, we might have made some mistakes in the past. I don't remember exactly. I think one of them was this duration format where it was like an integer type, but now we just both support integers and strings. Maybe it's not really something we want to change in the future. Maybe we just keep it like that. But we could change it so that it's only strings, for example, like it's 5 days and not 5 billion seconds or whatever. Yeah.
My reaction to this is we probably need an issue to track it and attach that issue to the milestone for 117. Because if we are going to promote it to beta or change anything and make it beta, then that's the first step, right?
Right. Then we'll have 2 versions again in the cert-manager repository.
So it'll test our CRD conversion muscles that have atrophied since we moved to V1 and cert-manager. I think we'll be okay.
I hope so. I'm not sure if we already have conversion logic for config files, so that might be interesting.
Yeah, you'd have to add it to the generators list for the conversion gen, but that's not too hard, I think.
Anyway, it was just a quick note.
Sounds good. Well, EPR is being retested and will be merged soon. And Tim, am I right to add you as an action to create the issue for V1 beta 1 for the config?
Okay.
Sweet. I think we've moved on. We've finished with that then, unless anyone screams. So the last thing that we have currently is Erik talking about a random number generator, which is exciting.
I just added this to the agenda since I saw we had time.
Yep.
For a long time, I've been looking at some logic in Trust Manager where it's kind of complex and it has logic to kind of find out if the target for the trust bundles does need update or not. Since this controller is already using server-side apply, I really want to remove that needs update and leave that up to the API server to decide whether it needs an update or not. But in order to do so, we need everything inside the target to be deterministic. And I think the last piece in the puzzle, I probably have to check that a bit more. Seems to be the PKCS12 trust stores. So here I have a PR to kind of short circuit the random generator of the code generating the trust store, which kind of make it deterministic. But I know it's controversial. I posted this on cert-manager dev, but only James kind of has commented on it yet. I'm raising it here to just discuss whether this could be okay or whether we should say it's a no-go. It's kind of a requirement for doing what I'm trying to do in Trust Manager.
Yeah. So I hadn't reviewed it because I agree with what you're doing. Like from a cryptographic standpoint, the encryption is not encryption. It's not secure. Shouldn't treat it as being secure. It's fine to short circuit it for our own benefit. James commenting does at least give me pause because he's like, I suspect he wouldn't be able to talk about any specific system he might know that does have these requirements, but I suspect there are systems which, like if you get audited for like PCI compliance or something, then and they see this, it may well be that you'll get flagged and oh yeah, cheers Akbar, cheers Divi. Thanks for coming. Yeah, if there's like a PCI thing that goes on and Trust Manager gets flagged for non-compliance, then we will have to add back in secure random number generation down the road, and we will have to have the needs update stuff. So, like, I don't know about that, the compliance stuff. To be fair, like, I don't know if that's actually a thing that anyone would require, but it could. unfortunately, it's a very easy thing to say will be a problem, and it's very hard for us to disprove that because we don't know if it will, kind of thing.
It's probably better to not do it, as James is saying, and you're kind of getting into now. I'll try to think of if we can find another solution to this, to the root problem here. I mean, there is one in the community now trying to fix a bug with this, where when the password is changed, it doesn't renew the bundle, which is a bug. Which it's, in my opinion, it's the root of this bug is the needs update logic. It's error prone. It's really hard to cover every corner case when you have that logic.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Peter?
Sorry, I don't have anything useful to add, but I'm just trying to understand it a bit more. When you say, I don't really understand what you mean by making it deterministic. It's probably really simple, but I'm not getting the issue, if that makes sense. Is there a simple way to explain it in the next 10 minutes or?
I think it's possible to explain. I mean, with server-side apply, you kind of typically unconditionally create your request where you set values on the fields of the resource that you want to apply, and you send it to the API server. And the API server is pretty smart in this area. So it kind of looks at the resource and what the state is in etcd. And depending on that, it will actually perform an update. So if the trust store is not deterministic, you will always get a change when you submit the server-side apply request to the API server, which will end up in typically endless reconcile loops where Trust Manager will get a new event to reconcile it, then it issues a new request, the target is updated, which again makes Trust Manager reconcile it. So it goes on and on.
So it's like you're applying a different thing every time, but
Yes.
you're not. It's just because there's something random in there. It's
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's the salt, I think, isn't it, for the password? Salting it, and that is the most secure way to do that would be to just use random numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Doesn't mean anything in this case because the password isn't secure anyway, and it's not a security measure. It's just an implementation detail.
We already have a system to detect changes using hashes and annotations. So, I mean, it would be more elegant to not have to check that. But on the other hand, I do see how this could be a massive problem for audits and reviews and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is definitely something people will complain about.
Yes.
I wonder if there's anyone in the community that would be able to maybe run us through what an audit of this type would entail and whether it would catch this. Like, are the audits clever enough to know when we're not doing a security thing, we're doing an implementation thing, or is it just like oh, that's insecure, you're not allowed to do it kind of job? Like, if there's got to be someone that could explain that. Maybe James does know the detail and he can't share it in a public forum, and maybe he can tell us privately. But there's got to be a way of getting some more certainty over it, right? Maybe we could ask Insert Manager in Kubernetes Slack.
I can try and ask James about this privately. I also have a feeling I've been watching James for a while, and he tends to be quite conservative, which is generally a good thing. So it might also just be that it's a conservative stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tremendously easy to say this could fail an audit at some point, and
Of course.
it's very hard for us to disprove that. I remain generally in favor of this from first principles. Like, cryptographically, this makes sense. It's wise to do this, in my view. It's just if is going to cause an explosion down the road. Like that's aside from the simplifying the code, which obviously you've worked a lot on, and it would be nice to be able to simplify it further. But like even with that aside, I think it's worth this being deterministic. And I believe we could. I believe it could be done. The only alternative, if we can't do this right, is if we have to like redefine equality. Like we have to make two unequal things appear equal, and I suspect that's going to be much trickier to do.
Yeah. Okay, so
Not
I will check with
hard, I think.
James.
I don't think it's that hard. We can also just yeah, can we not just skip reconciliation when we see that the resource matches what we expect?
Then we need to dive into what we need to like parse the PKCS12 right to check that it does match what we expect. Like it's not undoable, but it doesn't get rid of the needs update loop. Like that is my understanding is my understanding right there. Essentially, if we can make this deterministic, we can rely on Kubernetes to do the equality check. Otherwise, at the moment, we're the ones doing it, and that's the problem, right?
Yeah, we use the pattern I described in all our internal controllers and operators, and it works like a charm. So, and the API server, as far as I understand, is pretty smart as detecting whether this is changed or not, and it's not very consuming regarding compute. So it's something that at least I understood it's very common way to do it. And it's actually, I wouldn't say probably it's recommended officially, but because you can easily get into trouble if you have a bug in your code, of course, which we had once or twice in the beginning when we started doing this. But it's theoretically possible to make an update and then use some kind of predicate for doing what Tim is suggesting, to kind of figure out whether the trust story is what we expect it to be from a kind of more functional point of view.
Yeah, it's basically the same logic as like writing a test, isn't it? You're just doing it actually in the hot path.
Yeah, you will have to calculate it, and then, or you have to unlock it and see if it works. Probably.
Okay, so the follow-up from this, so that we know what's next, is you said you were going to message James and get some more detail from him on his comment. I think that's a cracking first step. We'll have to discuss this again at some point, I'm sure, if pending what James says, we'll see. Maybe if we do end up keeping this in, I think we're fairly confident that we would be able to actually make our equality check better. It just doesn't allow the code simplification that we're going for. But maybe that's an upstream Kubernetes feature request then, like being able to define a custom check on their end.
That's an interesting thought.
Like, I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, if I was them, I wouldn't want to be parsing PKCS12 files. Like, I can understand why they would reject that, but like that rabbit hole goes deep. But there is something there, and I'm sure they'd be interested in the edge case we're hitting.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Right, let's find the. Okay, so I think the agenda is now complete. There's nothing else on it. Does anyone want to bring anything up for the last few minutes that we have? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I will draw the meeting to an end. Thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you to everyone that joined and then left. Tune in next time and watch the time zone change, because it will catch everyone in North America, I'm sure, unless you're in Arizona. No, it'll still affect you in Arizona. Never mind, just watch it. Yeah, I'll stop the recording. Thank you very much, everyone.